Welcome to Complete BS, the official podcast of couch coaches everywhere. Not just football. It's every sport that ruins your parlay, wrecks your fantasy week, and still brings you back for more. Buzzer beaters, blown leads, and brackets and flames. Yeah, we're all over it. Unfiltered takes, armchair analysis, and enough bold opinions to fill a playbook. Hosted by Brien Schmauch, sports junkie, the Saban of stats, and your official voice of I could coach better than that. Let's go.
Welcome, Couch Coach Nation. This is Complete BS. Joining me today is Zach Barnett, national columnist for FootballScoop.com. You can find him on X at Zach_Barnett. If you're not checking out FootballScoop.com, I highly recommend it. Get in there, take a read. Yesterday, Zach posted a great article about Jim Knowles and Penn State. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely. So can you tell everybody a little bit about Football Scoop if they haven't been to the site, and then how you got into this business with them?
Oh, that's a good question. So Football Scoop has been around since 1999. It was started by, he was a GA at TCU at the time named Keith Allen. And so he was just in a position where he was like, well, I'm calling every school I can to see if they have any full-time jobs. And every other person in my position that has my job is doing the same thing. There's this internet thing. Why don't I just make it a website? And that way every GA looking for a job has one central hub to do that. So he started and ran Football Scoop for 8 years. And then in 2007, ended up getting a small college head coaching job in Kansas. My boss now, Scott Roussel, was in the business world looking to make a life change, bought the website, and continues to own it to this day. I have worked at Football Scoop since 2012. I was working for the National Football Foundation and was looking to do something different. And Football Scoop said that they were looking to hire. 13 years later, here we are.
And it's not just a job board for those looking for coaches. There's a ton of content down there and news about college football, specifically around the coaching ranks. One of my favorite things that you guys do is in December, when the coaching carousel gets spinning, is nuclear winter. I'm going to go ahead and put out the disclaimer that Zach always does. This is just for fun. This is not serious. This is not anything that we're calling for jobs. We're saying this is going to happen. We've got any inside information that this particular school is going after this coach. It's just a fun exercise that they do. But I love how they get everything spinning and put it out into the atmosphere.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And it's funny because that idea was actually Scott's. He's like, hey, why don't you do this? Give it a spin. It has had a reaction unlike anything I've ever written. And the good and bad of it for me was that, in my opinion, the first one ended perfectly. And the next November rolled around, Scott was like, we got to do nuclear winter again. And I was like, but there's no way I'm ever going to be able to top the first one. He was like, I don't care. Do it again. Thankfully, it has loyal readership and people look forward to it every year, which I'm grateful for. But at the same time, every year I write it, I want to crawl in a hole because I know I'll never be able to top myself. So it's trying to keep it as close to reality as plausibly to be believed. But at the same time, you want to be creative and have some fun with it. So you're constantly trying to top yourself. And I feel like I never do, but people still enjoy it. So I'm grateful for that.
With that in mind, when we talk about different previews with the college football season, we like to talk about coaches on the hot seat. And for me, what that means is we're not calling for anybody's job or saying anybody needs to make a move. That's not our decision. But we are looking at coaches that need to win this year. Otherwise, their fan base is going to be a little bit excitable. Their athletic directors and boosters might be looking at them. So we're going to talk coaches on the hot seat with that in mind. Again, not calling for anybody's job, just things that might get a little bit warm if they don't win some more games this year. And Zach, if you'll kick us off with the ACC, what are you seeing there?
I think Tony Elliott at Virginia, he was a guy that was hot assistant for Dabo when in Clemson's dynasty years. Obviously, he had equity in what they built, if such a thing really existed, and had his pick of jobs and chose Virginia. And I think he's represented them in a way. Everyone that knows Tony Elliott loves Tony Elliott. But at the same time, he's gone 3-7, 3-9, 5-7. And obviously, the end of the first season, they only played 10 games because you had 4 players murdered. Tony Elliott, the person, led them through that time as best as he possibly could. But then last year came back at 3-9. They did improve this season, but Virginia, they were to have a 4th straight losing season. That's typically when you start to ask some questions. And then you look at Brent Pry at Virginia Tech as well. He's also going into year 4. Virginia Tech, obviously they're a program that dominated the Big East and the ACC for a time. Virginia Tech's advantages that they had in the late 90s, 2000s, early 2010, those are largely gone. They simply don't have the money that a lot of these other programs do. So Brent Pry's gone 3-8, 7-6, 6-7. So he has another season like that. I think it'll be a conversation that Virginia Tech needs to have with itself. Is what's fair to expect from our football program in 2025, 2026?
A couple that I had on my radar was Justin Wilcox out at Cal. He's starting year 9 and 8 games under 500. His best season was pre-COVID in 2019 at 8-5. And they have a new athletic director in Berkeley. And a lot of times when you have that new AD, they're looking to put their stamp on the biggest financial program, and that's football. So that could be an area where the new AD is looking to make a new hire. Mike Norvell here in my backyard in Tallahassee. Talking about him, I think if he gets bowl eligible, that quiets things and we move on to 2026. If the wheels fall off again and they can't make a bowl, I have to see that FSU is really going to be looking at him hard. And my final one is maybe a bit of an outlier, but I look at Dave Dornan at NC State. He's going into year 13. He's only had 4 9-win seasons. They haven't won a bowl game since 2017. And I think the Bill Belichick hire just up the road in Chapel Hill has a lot of fans and boosters saying, hey, if UNC could make a splash hire, has Dave Dornan taken us as far as he can go? And maybe we can get something different. So I would look at those 3.
Yeah, those are good suggestions. I agree with you on Mike Norvell. No one's expecting 13 wins this season, but I think you got to get to that 8. You got to show competency. You got to put a football team on the field that looks like it knows what it's doing, that looks like it's well constructed. I think everyone's willing at Florida State, willing to write off 2024 as an aberration if Mike Norvell proves that it's an aberration. And on Cal, talked about Virginia and Virginia Tech kind of needing to have a family conversation about what's fair to expect from their program. They've already done that at Cal. They watched what Stanford did in hiring Andrew Luck as the general manager with 80 powers, 80 oversight over the football program. They had a revolt among their major boosters and their collective donors and say, we're not going to donate to the program anymore until you do the same thing with Ron Rivera. So they've since done that, and Ron Rivera has the power to hire and fire the head coach. So 1 + 1 typically equals 2 in these situations. At the same time, it's really hard to win at Cal. You're in the ACC at the University of California. I can see Justin Wilcox getting fired, but at the same time, it's hard for me to envision Cal hiring anyone doing demonstrably better than Justin Wilcox has done at Cal. The Jeff Tedford days of 2007 with Aaron Rodgers probably aren't coming back.
Fair point. What do you have in the Big 12?
These aren't hot seat guys, so to speak. I don't expect either one of them to be fired, but I think it's going to be what do we really have here type season with Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. Everyone's fully agreed upon that this season is an outright failure if they don't at least get to Arlington. Texas Tech's never been in the Big 12 championship game ever, and they have the most talented team in the Big 12 and certainly the most expensive team in the Big 12. So there's nowhere for Joey McGuire to hide. To his credit, he acknowledges that. TCU, Sonny Dykes, kind of similar to Mike Norvell at Florida State. Huge success early, maybe a little bit too successful for his own good in 2022. Come back to earth a little bit in 2023, 5 games that season, and then back to 9-4. So are you just a 9-win team, or are you going to get TCU back to the top of the heap in that conference and winning that conference? Dave Aranda, a similar boat. He's had high highs, low lows. There's some people at Baylor that think they have the best quarterback running back combo, not only in the Big 12, but one of the best in the nation. So is this a program that can get to Arlington? And then Arizona is one to keep an eye on. Brent Brennan is new there, but I've heard from industry talk that there was conflict with the AD there. So if they don't win this season, I wouldn't be surprised to see a quick trigger there.
I agree with you absolutely on Dave Aranda. He's somebody that I had on my list last year. An 8-5 season last year kind of squashed things right now. But if he backslides on that, I think that can be a place that Baylor looks to make a change. And then I'd also look at Cincinnati with Scott Satterfield going into year 3, 8-16, hasn't had a winning season there. Just getting bowl eligible, that would be a big step there.
The Big 12 is absolutely fascinating to me because if you played this ACC season 100 times, Clemson or Miami probably win it 70 to 80 times. You played the Big 10 season out 100 times, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon probably win it 95 of those times. SEC, Texas, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, those 4 combined probably win the league 90 times. You played any Big 12 season out 100 times, I doubt any single school wins it more than 20. So there is a wide variance. The ceiling and the floor in that conference are closer than any other conference. The 2025 season, once we get to December 1st, if you wind it back to August 1st, you get a different season. But of course, history is shaped by what happens on the field. So it's just the twists and turns of the Big 12 season. You could have who makes the Big 12 championship game, who makes the playoff, who gets fired. All that is going to spin on penalties, quarterback injuries, turnover luck, all that stuff. And so it's just, love to watch the Big 12 for that reason, just because that conference is so topsy-turvy.
I agree. And as I was doing my top 25, which will be another episode, I've got multiple teams in the Big 12 ranked in the top 25. But looking across the conference, I see 6 teams that I could have winning the conference. So I think it's going to be the most exciting conference to watch across the country. Those games are must-see TV. Now let's turn our attention to the Big Ten. And what do you see in the Big Ten this year?
Again, I don't think he gets fired by any means, but I'm interested in Sharon Moore. Obviously, last season was a year 0 for him coming off the national championship. First-year head coach, did himself tremendous favors by beating Ohio State, beating Alabama to end the year. He has a first-year quarterback in Bryce Underwood. They go to Oklahoma week 2. I don't know what the spread is, but I don't expect them to win that game. So you see the line of what's fair to expect from someone who's still, I don't think Sharon Moore isn't even 40 years old yet, second year as head coach, first-year quarterback, 5-star quarterback in Bryce Underwood. But at the same time, you won the Big Ten 3 years in a row under Jim Harbaugh. You beat Ohio State 3 years in a row under Jim Harbaugh, obviously in a tremendous upset, but you beat Ohio State. So how long is Michigan going to tolerate being one level below the absolute elite? I don't think anyone expects them to be there in year 2, but I think if they're 6-6, 7-5, I think they'd say that's a tremendous disappointment. So I think one that's just interesting to watch from that regard. You have a lot of new coaches in the Big Ten. I don't think Matt Rule's in any danger. Deshaun Foster, year 2. Jed Fish, year 2 at Washington, I don't think is any danger. Lincoln Riley is the obvious one, but can USC afford to fire him? The pattern with Lincoln Riley has been at Oklahoma. His 2017 team easily could have won the national championship. 2018 team was a step below. 2019 team was a little bit worse. 2020 team was a little bit worse, but still managed to win the Big 12. 2021 team didn't make the Big 12 championship game. USC almost made the playoff in 2022. Took a big step back in 2023. Took another step back last season, 2024. And now you go into 2025. They've invested a lot in the program. I think USC's in that range where a lot of schools are, where it's like, well, it's cheaper to give our struggling head coach more resources on the terms of NIL, staff hires, stuff like that. It's cheaper to invest fully in him more than it is to fire him. So I don't have Lincoln Riley's contract in front of me. It's locked away with key because it's a private institution. But I know it would be very expensive to fire him. So if they struggle again this season, I think they're just going to continue to double down on him until they get deeper into that contract.
Okay. One of the notes I had on Lincoln Riley is also with a new athletic director there. I always look at those coaches that don't have the wins. Their win-loss record is close to or below the 500 mark. And then they add in a new athletic director that wasn't the guy or girl who hired them. And that, to me, sends up a red flag that you might be in trouble. One of those for me with a new AD is at Maryland, Mike Locksley. He entering year 7, he's upside down with his record and went 4-8 last year. I think a lot of his success is going to be tied to their true freshman quarterback, Malik Washington, and his development. If they show progress and Washington's coming along this year and he can sell to the AD, hey, we're building something here, this is our guy, then he gets another year. If Maryland really struggles this year and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of development from the quarterback, I think he could be in trouble there.
Yeah, I know at Maryland, they really like Mike Locksley. He's a really good recruiter, specifically a really good recruiter for Maryland. Played at Towson from DC. He knows more people in the DMV area than probably any other human being in football, for being honest with you. He admitted at Big Ten Media Days that he lost the locker room, was trying in real time to figure out how to manage a payroll, which no college coach signed up to do, but has obviously been thrust upon them. And he didn't do a good job of it. He said, if I had to put my desk in the locker room, I'll do that. So if he gets back to that 6-win territory, I think they'd be willing to keep him on. If it's 4 wins again, then yeah, I think they'd have to have a serious conversation about the trajectory of the program.
Now where every football coach wants to get because of the money of the coaching salaries, but the pressure goes up and through the roof, the SEC. What are you looking at in the SEC?
Mark Stoops, Kentucky, took the Texas A&M job for about 12 hours, probably not even that long, and then tucked tail back to Kentucky when that fell through. And predictably, Kentucky had a joyless season last year. They struggled tremendously on offense, similar to your Dave Doran comment earlier. He's been there a long time, had a lot of success, but is it time for just a different voice? I think that's probably what Kentucky's going to be asking itself if it has another subpar season. And then it's Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I think back to September 2021 when they beat Texas and beat Texas A&M within the same month, within 3 weeks of each other. And Arkansas felt like it was on top of the world. And then that's been the best it's been at Arkansas since then. Arkansas, it's interesting because you have the Walmart family, the Tyson Foods family, the Jones family. You get one of them on board, you're good to go from an NIL perspective, but they've just been consistently behind in that regard. They lose multiple starters to other SEC schools. They become an SEC farm program, which is tough for Sam Pittman. Everyone that knows Sam Pittman likes and respects him, but he's no fool. They've got to win more or he'll be gone. And then Brent Venables. Joe Castiglione, the AD, is on his way out. They've hired Jen Nagy from the Senior Bowl as the GM, who Jen Nagy does not report to Brent Venables. He reports to the AD. That's basically de facto Randall Stevenson, an Oklahoma grad who formerly ran AT&T, is now trying to restructure Oklahoma's athletic department. So if Oklahoma wins 6 games or less again, Brent Venables is as good as gone. If they win 8, especially, I think that's probably the minimum threshold for him to return, but it depends on how they get those 8. If they start 5-0 and they go 3-4 from that point forward, probably a poor season for OU.
Yeah, I had those same 3 on my radar. I also have Hugh Freeze there just because I think Auburn's expectations are always so high, and he recruits better than the results on the field. I think the SEC schedule is manageable for him, but I really think this is a make or break year if Auburn wants to make a change.
Yeah, and Hughes acknowledged that. He's like, I'm no fool. We got to win more. Hughes says that the glory days are coming. No one expects Auburn to play the SEC championship game this season. They've got to do better than they've done in the past. I think you brought in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, who was benched from his job at OU, and you're taking him on as a reclamation project. Auburn should have won 7, 8, even 9 games last season, but quarterback play brought them down. So if they can hold on to the football better than they did last year, then they will win 8, 9 games. But Jackson Arnold got dismissed at Oklahoma because he turned the ball over too much. So if Hugh Freeze turns it around at Auburn this year, he's going to have to really earn his paycheck in terms of quarterback coaching.
And one other that I would throw out there, and I don't think anything is happening this offseason, and I never would have put him even on the radar last year because he made the playoff, is Josh Heupel at Tennessee. And the only reason I would consider him as somebody to look for next year is his roster management, his NIL handling with the Nico situation in the offseason, Recently, they just had another player that said he's going to hop in the portal and has some NIL issues. He's got to figure out that piece of it. It's not coaching. It's the roster management. It's the NIL collective side of things and paying out your roster. If he has another offseason like he had this offseason, I think then the AD is really going to be looking at him thinking, is this the right person to manage our program aside from the X's and O's?
Josh Heupel safe at Tennessee. I don't think anyone at Tennessee puts that on him. They brought in Nico for what is reported 3 years, up to $8 million. That's an institutional decision. That's not a Josh Heupel decision. That's you get all the stakeholders in the room and say, all right, we're going to go do this, and we're going to blaze a trail here by offering this kid this amount of money and making this level of commitment to him. And so that blowing up in their faces, I think everyone at Tennessee is putting that on Nico and his representation other than Josh Heupel. And I think probably the way that played out probably played in Josh Heupel's favor and not bowing to their demands and saying, all right, if you need more, then go somewhere else. I think Tennessee probably takes a step back this year. 7-8 is probably better than 6, obviously, but I don't think Tennessee is expected to make the playoff. And Tennessee's been through it. You go from the end of the Phil Fulmer era to where they are now. They've seen the consequences of instability, and I don't think they're going to rush to bring a new head coach and bite that instability if they don't absolutely have to. And then the AD, Danny White, hired Josh Heupel at UCF and then brought him with him to Tennessee. So those two, I think it would take a lot for Danny White to fire Josh Heupel.
We talked about the Power Four. Do you have a coach or two in the group of 5 that could be having their seat get a little bit warm?
Yeah, my mind immediately goes to Trent Dilfer, UAB. If you're an AD and you lose conventionally, people look at the head coach. If you're an AD and you lose unconventionally, then people look at the AD. And you look at Trent Dilfer, obviously, Deion Sanders-like background, and getting a FBS head coaching job was an NFL player. He not breaking any news there. UAB is a school that struggles to create its own identity separate from the University of Alabama, and they want to get people that are proud to be UAB Blazers and not just stepping there on their way to somewhere else. And Trent Dilfer's made some comments, inviting his grandkid to sit with him at a post-game press conference. Well, it's not like this is Alabama. And then his daughter, who's on an in-house podcast with their AD, I believe it was, and talked about his daughter signed with Louisville Volleyball, which Louisville is a great school, but he thought, man, Trent said, the Louisville volleyball program's really got to figure it out. And then he said, well, our volleyball program's pretty good too. So he's played into exactly what UAB doesn't want to be. And then you add he's 7-17. And so if he is sub 500 after this season, I would be very surprised if he's back for a 4th season. I think the stakeholders at UAB would say, all right, we've had enough of this. Go get us someone who wants to be the head coach at UAB, who's come to his path in a traditional way.
If we have all of these coaching changes, who are some group of 5 coaches that maybe people don't know about that maybe they're due for a bigger job and move up to that P4 level?
The real answer is a lot. I'm going to shout out 2 guys that I've followed their careers when they were at the Division III NAIA level that are now FBS head coaches that I've been aware of these guys for 10 years, and I'm glad to see them at this level. I think the sky's the limit for them. That's Scotty Walden at UTEP. He was a 22-year-old offensive coordinator at Division III, East Texas Baptist, and led the country, led the entire NCAA in yardage at his first year there when most of his peers hadn't even graduated college. Been a head coach at Austin Peay, won there. Now he's at UTEP going into year 2. I think that's one of those programs that I wouldn't be surprised wins 8-9 games this year. It's a coach, a lot of energy on the recruiting trail. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see him move up to the Power 5 or Power 4 level at some point, probably not this year. And then Matt Drinkall at Central Michigan. I wrote about him when he was in the NAIA level at Kansas Wesleyan and was doing stuff that nobody was really doing in terms of explosiveness in the run game and the pass game. Now at Central Michigan, I think he's going to do a really good job there. That, again, I'd be surprised if he's a Power 4 head coach in 2026. But I'd also be surprised if he's not a Power 4 head coach by 2029, 2030.
One of my favorite coaches in college football is Jason Candle at Toledo. He's entering year 10, 73-40, never had a losing season. And entering year 10, he's still only 45 years old. Every cycle, I think, why doesn't a Big Ten team come after him? So he's somebody that I think is due if he wants it. He may be completely happy and content there. You look at Boise State, Spencer Danielson. If you're at Boise State and you're winning, folks are going to start coming and looking at you. And he's only in year 2 at Tulane, but John Summerall, he had success at Troy. He's been successful in year 1 there at Tulane. I expect them to continue that. There's only 2 coaches at Tulane in the last 70 years that have won more than half of their games. Tommy Bowden and Willie Fritz, and both of them went on to bigger jobs. If he keeps winning, someone's coming for John Summerall at Tulane.
Yeah, John Summerall would have almost been a too obvious answer for me because he's a hot name this past cycle in a different world, in a world where Bill Belichick doesn't exist. He's probably the head coach of North Carolina right now. That's another story. I mean, he's a Kentucky alum. So if Kentucky moves on from Mark Stoops, I'd be very surprised if they don't make a full court press at him. The interesting thing there would be, does he go home to his alma mater? Going home to your alma mater, more often than not, it's not sunshine and roses. So that would be interesting to see if he does that, or if he holds out for an Auburn or an Arkansas or something like that. And then Jason Candle, there have been multiple times over the years where we at Football Scoop have been following him very closely for head coaching jobs, NFL assistant jobs, Power 4 coordinator jobs, where we thought within a couple hours we're going to learn that this guy's moved on. And for one reason or another, that hasn't happened. He's still at Toledo. They don't probably get the credit they deserve for consistent success. Boise State is the consistent winner, but who else is ahead of them at the group of 5 level in terms of stacked and winning seasons year after year? And you mentioned the Big Ten, and running through it off the top of my head, I can only name one Big Ten school that's hired a former MAC head coach. That's Minnesota hiring PJ Fleck from Western Michigan. So I think for a long time, it was just such an obvious thing, the MAC to Big Ten pipeline, that I think so many schools in the Big Ten have seen that not work out. So they're like, all right, let's try something different. And B, the money is so big now in the Big Ten that they can shop from a different store now that maybe they needed to 20 years ago. So none of that's to say Jason Candle can't go win the Big Ten, but it's just a long story longer. I don't know what the next job for Jason Candle is, but the evidence tells us that he's comfortable passing on some pretty good gigs to remain at Toledo.
And if you went the coordinator route, do you have a offensive or defensive coordinator that you think this guy's primed, he's ready to go and get that head coaching job?
Colin Klein, Texas A&M. He's a guy that I've been very successful with, was a very prominent player, did a really good job at Kansas State. Texas A&M has invested heavily in their offense. If he can develop Marcel Reed, because Marcel Reed did as good as you could expect of a guy who was a redshirt freshman that started the year as a backup, stepping into a starter, but still has some areas to grow, specifically as a passer. If he can grow as a passer, they went out and got a lot of wide receivers in the portal. Their offensive line returns a lot of experience. The running game should be really, really good. If Texas A&M gets to 10 wins and makes the playoff, then Colin Klein's going to be fielding head coaching offers in the Power 4 level. There's no doubt in my mind.
I look at Will Stein out at Oregon. Oregon's had a new transfer quarterback after new transfer quarterback, and this year with Dante Moore, if he can manage that process, because, we're not going anywhere with the portal, and that's always going to be that issue there. Him being able to show how he's managed that, been able to get the most out of Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, now Dante Moore. I think that's something that's going to be really attractive to an athletic director making a hire. I look at him. And then I also look at Elijah Robinson, the defensive coordinator at Syracuse. He's been an amazing recruiter in his career. He's only 40 years old. And the success that Fran Brown has had there and bringing him in as the defensive coordinator, I think as Fran Brown moves forward in his career, Elijah Robinson is either going to have an opportunity to step into that head job at Syracuse or have another opportunity to go elsewhere as a head coach.
Yeah, those are 2 great suggestions. The one skill that has been emphasized more, like obviously any head coach needs to be a good leader, good at time management, all that stuff. But one thing that's probably changed more from 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago to right now is just the ability to acquire talent and attract talent. So if you don't have as many skins as the walls as a coordinator, but you've proven you can recruit, that's probably more of a plus in your mind than it was 6-7 years ago when an AD might say, all right, let's see him prove himself as a tactician more. Now it's, all right, this guy's proven he could coordinate, and he's an elite recruiter as a position coach and a coordinator. All right, this guy's ready to be a head coach. Not to say that Elijah Robinson's, unproven.
Well, Zach, I really appreciate it. This has been so much fun looking at coaches, whether they're P4, Group of 5, looking at different coordinators and having this conversation. Let everybody know where they can find you.
On FootballScoop.com every single day. On Twitter at Zach _Barnett, BARNETT.
Very good. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This has been Complete BS.
Thanks for listening to Complete BS. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us online. And tell us what you think of this episode. Use hashtag CouchCoachNation, and let's keep the conversation going.